Hi guys, what are we gonna do today? I bet you can guess. We're gonna be using texture and a few other little techniques and coming up with a fun finish, whether it's on metal, on terracotta, on wood, on whatever you wanna use it on. Let's get started. I have quite a few of these flattened sap buckets, so that's what I'm using for this project. But you could use any surface that you would like to, whether it's a pot, a board, a round bucket, anything that you can think of to use this technique. All I did is wipe it and clean it, and I put a base coat on it of a gray paint. You can use any sort of a paint you would like. You just want to have a good surface to work on when you're adding your texture medium. So after this is completely dried, I'm using a 3D stencil fiber paste. So I'm using this 3D texture medium. I don't need to cover the whole thing, just depending on what stamp you want to use, you want to make sure you have enough texture and depth for where your stamp will be. And I'm going to be using a large floral, so I know I am going to need to cover a nice portion of it. An 1/8 inch, maybe some areas are a 1/4 inch. You really don't need lots and lots. The thicker you get it, the longer you're gonna have to let it set up before you can stamp into it. You want it to have a nice crust over it and just starting to set up a little bit. Otherwise, your stamp will just stick to it and it'll just all come out and it will just be all over the place. So when you let it start to form a little bit, then you can stamp into it to get a nice impression. And then maybe I'll just do a thinner coat out here. So I'm just using this rubber spatula type piece, and you really could use almost anything. You could use a credit card, but that's a little stiffer. So even if you had a rubber spatula, that would work perfect. Just pop it off, and it has enough flexibility so you can mold it around and still have your texture coming through. And we're just gonna let this set. This has been about 45 minutes. Around 40 to 45 minutes. For this thickness. You're gonna feel, it feels clammy on top, but your hand is not really sticking to it. So I put the cornstarch on the stamp so it doesn't stick quite as much. So what I am going to do is lay this down on here and start pressing in. And some areas that are thicker are gonna have a deeper indentation. And that's the other problem, is if you have some areas that are a lot thicker and other areas that are thinner, some areas may dry a lot more and other ones still may be very gooey. It makes it easier if you stay kind of consistent where you're stamping with the same thickness. Ooh, didn't that turn out pretty? There you go. The only thing I noticed also is that if where you cut your stamp, you may see some of those ridges also. So if you want to, you can get that a little bit wet or smooth that out if that bothers you at all. It doesn't really bother me. So I'm gonna roll out some clay and we're gonna add that on here. So I put some cornstarch on this little plastic sheet here, and I'm putting some cornstarch on my brayer. And I'm just gonna roll a piece out here. And this is just air dry clay. This is my IOD air dry clay, and I really like using this. It looks like the clay is about 1 centimeter, maybe a little thinner. Now I don't want to press too hard into this because I'll rip it. So I'm just kind of indenting. And what I'm gonna do next is cut this out. Carefully try to lift it up first. And I'm just using an X-Acto, and it doesn't need to be perfect, just kind of cutting an outline. I think I'm gonna add those there, so I'm just gonna glue these. Use my Type on Quick and Thick, and I'm just gluing these down. I overlapped this sleeve over that one so they look like they're together, and I'm just going to smooth this in a little bit. I'm just going to let this set a little bit and dry, and then I'm going to paint this. So when your texture paste and your clay this isn't completely dry, but it's quite dry, I am just going to paint over the whole top again, and I'm just using the same color I had, but you could do whatever you would like. So right now it doesn't matter what type of paint you use. I'm just using the original chalk paint that I used on here, but you could use whatever you would like for your base coat and to cover this after this dries. Then we're gonna let this dry, do a quick sealer over it, and then clay-based paint to do my wash. So let's let this dry real quick. So now I'm just gonna put a clear sealer over the top of this. I've missed a few areas, but that's gonna be okay. And it doesn't really matter what type of a sealer you use. You don't wanna use wax. You definitely wanna use, so a water-based sealer would be the best, but you can use really any sealer you want. So I'm using a clay-based paint, and this is DIY paint, but there are a lot of paints out there you can use, and then I'm loading my brush with a lot of water. I want it very, very thin so it's more like a wash. Okay, so I'm gonna let this dry, and then we're gonna wipe it back. When this is dry, I'm just gonna take a baby wipe and start wiping. I'm wiping some of this back, but I really want more contrast. So what I'm gonna do is wipe some of the green back, and I am going to seal one more time. So what I did was I wanted two different background colors on my pots and my other pieces that I'm going to show you later. I just did a white, and then I used the green as a wash. I started with gray on this, and I wanted a little green on here, but not a lot. So that's why I sealed it, put the green wash on, rubbed some of it off. I'm sealing it again, and I wanted to try something really fun with this gold. So I'm gonna do a wash of gold over the top. I want my brush really, really wet, and I'm just gonna grab some paint and fill in again. Make sure I fill in all the crevices. Okay, let's get this dry, and we are going to wipe this off. So I'm using my baby wipes again, and you'll see this comes off. Look at how easy that comes off of there. So you can see where it all sticks in your little crevices and everywhere you've had some texture. So you're gonna see a little bit of green, you're gonna see a little bit of gray. So green and gray and the gold that is in the texture. So just by switching up a few different colors, you can get a whole different look. So I'm gonna use a clear wax on this first, but my brush does have dark wax on it. I'm not too worried about that, because I may even add more in if there's not enough showing through here. On some of the other ones, I just sealed it with a poly sealer, just like I had done in between the stages. This one, I wanted a little bit different. So you can see you really can use just whatever you've got. The only thing is, in between wiping off in your washes, you definitely want to use a liquid sealer. You do not want to use the wax for that part. I decided I wanted to add something else to it, and I probably should have done it before I waxed it, but I just kind of rubbed this back a little, and I think I'll be fine. I'm going to decoupage this on here. A little bit of my Mod Podge and just put it on this piece of paper. So I decided I'm going to just add a few more little elements. And I love this 11 by 17 paper. It's got so many cute, cute elements in it that I could use for projects. This is like the perfect piece. And I am just using water and going around the edges, and it helps rip it. Now, if you wanted to, you could also add more in there, or you could leave it, or whatever you would like, but hopefully this gives you some ideas. So you can see by using this technique, you can come up with a lot of different looks. Here's one on a pot with whites and greens. Here's one on a terracotta pot. And then down here, grays, greens, and yellows, and added some decoupage. So whatever you do, I hope you try this out. Try the concept, see what you come up with, but have fun.